Many people say that truth is stranger than fiction. That appears to be the case in regards to these strange and mysterious coincidences that are riddled all throughout history and may lead many to believe that perhaps there is something of a supernatural connection. So today, here at Unexplained Mysteries, we take a look at these 5 weirdest coincidences. The man and his lost daughter. Back in 2007, a man by the name of Michael Dirk made the news for travelling around the UK in the hopes of finding his lost daughter. It was said that she was 31 years old and that he had lost contact with her around 10 years ago. The Suffolk press got involved and tried to help Michael find his lost daughter. Before the search began, they took a photograph of him with his daughters. This was then going to be posted in the newspaper in the hopes of raising awareness. In an interesting turn of events, the daughter got into contact with the newspaper and asked to be reunited with her father. It turns out that Lisa was in the background of the photo that the Suffolk press took. She said the following: "I couldn't believe it. I was completely shocked. Me and my mum had been standing in that exact place where the picture was taken about a minute earlier. You can see us in the picture walking away. It's incredible." The baby in the window. Back during the 1930s, a man known as Joseph Figlock was minding his own business and going about his normal day when suddenly, seemingly out of nowhere, as he was walking on the sidewalk, a baby had fallen onto his shoulders and landed softly and safely without any injury. Mr. Figlock was astounded by this and looked up to find a screaming couple shouting from their apartment and crying for their baby, which they had believed had fallen out of the window and perished. Mr. Figlock met the parents and conversed on the incredible stroke of luck of catching their falling child at the perfect time, and believed that to be the end of the strange occurrence. This would later prove to not be the case, as on the exact same day of the following year, walking down a different route on his way to work, Mr. Figlock happened to be walking on the sidewalk at the right time for a baby to fall safely onto his shoulders in a strange stroke of luck. Mr. Figlock then realised that the baby was the exact same baby from the previous year that had fallen onto his shoulders, and again met the couple from the previous event that had moved to a new location. The Ohio twins. It has often been said amongst scientific speculation that twins could potentially have a secret link or connection between themselves that seems to somehow extend beyond the physical world. This appears to be the case for a pair of twins born in the state of Ohio, of whom both grew up knowing absolutely nothing about the other, given the fact they had been separated at birth and were not even aware of each other's existence. Despite this separation at birth, however, the two men would go on to lead strangely similar lives that seemed to circle around equally strange coincidences. Both of the boys, when they were adopted, were immediately named James by their adopted parents, completely unaware of the other. Both would grow up to become prominent figures in their community and work as police officers. Both would eventually meet around the same time a woman they would later marry, both of which had the name Linda. The coincidences get even more odd as time goes on. Both men would each end up having a son, one named James Allen, spelt A-L-A-N, and another named James Allen, spelled A-L-L-A-N. Each son would get a dog and name their dog's toy, and both twins would later get a divorce and remarry to another woman named Betty. The account of James Lenninger. From birth, James was often troubled by recurring nightmares and insomnia. As he grew up, his parents began noticing odd behaviour that they could not quite understand. James, for some unknown reason, had an absolute fascination with toy airplanes. In fact, toy airplanes were the only toys he would play with, and would often have closer attachments to older models of fighter planes. As he began learning how to speak, James would often spend his time talking about flying airplanes, the weapons attached to certain model fighter planes, and often about an accident that he was in with his plane. At 3 years old, James began showing even more strange information relative to airplanes to his mother. In fact, one of these was being able to perform pre-flight checks out loud during his playtime with his toys. He would often give recounts after his nightmares, saying that the middle of his engine was hit. After further investigation from the father, the boy would later recall an experience he had been through in a previous life, giving specific details of taking off from a ship with a co-pilot by the name of Jack Larson. Records found by the father would later show that there was indeed a military aircraft carrier referred to as the Natoma, and co-pilots Jack Larson and a man by the names of James Jr. were scheduled to take a flight together before being downed. A book predicted the sinking of the Titanic. The Titanic ship was a massive ship that was able to hold around 2,224 passengers. Unfortunately, this ship was to sink at around 2 a.m. on the 15th of April 1912 after it left Southampton to head to New York. This would be the ship's first sail to sea before it sunk in the North Atlantic Ocean after it struck an iceberg, claiming the lives of more than 1,500 people. In the morning after the Titanic had sunk, a German ocean liner was cruising through the North Atlantic, not far from where the Titanic had hit an iceberg the previous night. After it had often been regarded as one of the most accurate and strangest coincidences in all of history, it appears that before thoughts of even constructing the Titanic were started, there had been a book written that completely predicted the events that would unfold on the RMS Titanic's maiden voyage. The book was written and published back in 1898, more than 14 years before the ship set sail on its journey through to the North Atlantic. The book is titled as The Wreck of the Titan and tells a harrowing tale of the largest ocean liner ship that had ever been built, known as the Titan. In the story, the Titan sets off on its journey and strikes an iceberg in the North Atlantic Ocean, which causes it to sink quickly. Although that might be more than enough for people to see the coincidences, eerily enough, that does not appear to be the end of it. In the book, the Titan sank in April, the same month as the Titanic sank. Both ships held similar names. Both were described as being the largest craft afloat and the greatest works of men. The book claimed that the Titan was over 800 feet long and displaced more than 45,000 tons of water, similar to the Titanic that was 882 feet long and displaced 46,000 tons of water. Both ships were described as unsinkable, while also utilizing the strengths of a triple-screw propeller. Both were described as having a shortage of lifeboats, as well as striking the iceberg at 25 knots on the starboard side 400 nautical miles from Newfoundland, exactly the same. And last but not least, both ships were described as carrying 2,200 passengers, of which the majority suffered a terrible fate. The cause for these strange coincidences are completely unknown, and even the author himself has been surprised as to the strange nature of the book and the way it matched the sinking of the Titanic. Another mystery involving a ship is that of a young woman known as Violet Jessup. She loved her job working as both a stewardess and a nurse on the ship the HMS Olympic. Unfortunately for her, the ship she was working on would later collide with another ship known as the HMS Hawk, leading to its sinking and the death of many of her friends and co-workers. This did not deter her, however, as she later went back to continue her work as a nurse and stewardess on the HMS Britannic. Unfortunately for Miss Jessup, during the Britannic's maiden voyage, the ship struck a mine which would lead to a tragic scene of the ship sinking, and many of its passengers perishing. But again, Violet Jessup survived and was dubbed Miss Unsinkable. Scarred by these two events, Miss Jessup swore that she would no longer work on a boat that could sink, and so quickly took a position working as a stewardess and nurse on the boat regarded around the world as completely unsinkable, the Titanic. Many are aware of what happened on this ship and the terrible events that would later occur. Still, despite this, Violet Jessup survived the sinking of the Titanic and gave up her job working on boats to settle for something a little less dramatic. But what do you think of these 5 mysterious coincidences? Be sure to let us know your thoughts in the comment section below and help us by growing this community while working to solve these unexplained mysteries. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos.